Hey Roosters, and welcome back to another Star Wars Unlimited Leader Spotlight. Today we're going to be going over another leader from the second set of the Star Wars Unlimited trading card game, Shadows of the Galaxy. Disclaimer, this is not a meta-analysis. This is personally my opinion, and not every card that I think is great and works amazingly well with these leaders will make their way into today's video. A lot of the cards will have to be cut due to time, or simply because of the fact that we forgot. If you have a favorite that we failed to mention in today's video, please leave it in the comment section below. Han Solo. This is, of course, the version of Han Solo from the Solo movie made by Disney, the prequel to The New Hope. This tells the story of how Han got the Millennium Falcon, how he became friends with Chewbacca, and how he met Lando Calrissian, and of course, how the Kessel Run was performed. There's a lot of bad things people like to mention about the movie, and I don't think it's a perfect movie by any means, but I do think it is overly hated to a wide degree. I think it is definitely a fun watch, especially if you can get past the dumb things like how Han Solo got his last name, which not only makes no sense, it's completely useless and nobody asks for that explanation. It's a fictional universe. His last name was just Solo, and a lot of people were completely fine to accept that. That being said, he is an aggression and heroism leader with the Unworld key trait. He has an action exhaust him, play a unit from your hand, it costs one less, deal 2 damage to it. So from face value, this is a really cool and powerful ability. The ability to play cards for cheaper than what they were originally designed to be played at is an ability that, like a lot of abilities, it's only going to get better over time. And eventually there's going to be a combo with this card that is going to be really amazing, maybe break the game. But there is a huge drawback, or rather, a drawback. You have to deal 2 damage to whatever unit you play. And at first that doesn't seem too bad. Usually one more cost gives a unit 2 more points of value. That 2 points of value is usually power and HP, which means that a unit that costs 1 might say typically have 1 HP and 1 power. Not really, but for example. So it costing 1 less and dealing 2 damage to it is going to kill it. But a unit costing 2 would be usually 2 power, 2 health. So the same problem occurs. You may play it for 1 less, but it just dies when you play it, so you get almost no value out of the ability. But there are some really good cards that combo well with this ability that actually use that damage to their advantage. Mainly grit units. Although nothing on this card tells you to play grit units, the fact that you're dealing damage to your own units is a big indicator here, especially because a lot of grit units have a lot of high health, meaning that even at the lower costed grit units, they'll be able to be used with this ability without immediately just disintegrating. So, what happens when you flip him over? As an epic action, if you control 5 more resources, you can deploy him as a leader unit. And when you do, he becomes a 3 power 6 HP unit. With an action, play a unit from your hand. It costs 1 less. Deal 2 damage to it. So the main difference between the unit side and the leader side, or the leader face and the leader unit side, is the fact that you no longer have to exhaust Han Solo to take that action. Now, usually most players have a limited amount of actions they're going to take per turn, simply because they just run out of things to do. So obviously that doesn't mean you're going to be able to play 1,000 different units for -1 and dealing 2 damage to all of them. Sometimes you won't really want to take that trade. But the ability to choose to say, I'm going to play 3 different units, each costing 1 less, saving me 3 resources to play another unit that could be a 4 cost, costing 1 less for 3, is a big deal. And obviously when you flip him out and you decide to flip to leader unit form, that's when you're completely on go. You want to sort of make your big push at that moment. That holds true for a lot of leader units, but especially for this ability here, because that's the main difference. Your ability to play more units with his ability per phase. So what are some cool cards that work well with this leader? Like I said, we're going to be looking at a lot of grit units in today's video. The Heroic Renegade is the baseline for that. 2 cost, 2/3, grit. Underworld. At every metric, he's meant to work with Han Solo. From the fact that when he takes the 2 damage from his effect, he won't die, to the fact that he also can be played for a whole lot cheaper, making him a 1 cost instead of a 2 cost. He's not the perfect card, whether Han Solo or in general, but he does work well with Han Solo's ability. Courteous Rivals is an interesting card, 6 cost, 5/5 grit. When played and also on attack, you may deal 2 damage to a unit with a bounty. If you're not playing against a deck that plays a lot of bounty cards, or a deck that likes to give out a lot of bounties, this second effect is mainly useless. But the fact that he does have that grid ability is going to be something you may want to look at when using Han Solo. Krayt Dragon is a good example of where Han Solo also really shines. His ability to drop high cost cards for cheap. An high cost Krayt Dragon is a 10/10 overwhelm with an ability that says when an opponent plays a card, you may deal damage to that card's may deal damage equal to that card's cost to a base or ground unit they control. The important thing here is that you're playing the Krayt Dragon with Han Solo's ability for 8, which is 1 less than 9, and only dealing 2 damage to it, which gives it 8 remaining HP, which is still an absolute ton. The value you get from going from an 8 cost to a 9 cost is a lot bigger than you may initially think. From the simple fact that you can play it a phase earlier, and to the fact that, well, that's really the biggest thing here. The fact that you can play it a phase earlier. It becoming an 8 to 9, 8's a lot more manageable, and you can expect to get 8 in a lot of different games. 9 too, but the important part is that sometimes 8 may be the crux turn. Getting out a big card like this, even a turn earlier, can make the difference between whether or not it wins you or loses you the game. The K2S0 unit is a 4 cost 4/4 with overwhelm as well, and it says when defeated, for each opponent choose 1, either deal 3 damage to that player's base, or that player discards a card from their hand. The important part here is that although you're going to be dealing damage to this unit, when it dies, and it will die, you're going to gain an effect and a benefit from it dying. So that damage you're adding to your own unit doesn't hurt as much. Guerrilla Attack Pods is a 6 cost 4/6 grit unit that says when played, if a base has 15 or more damage on it, ready this unit. The second effect can actually come in clutch later in the game, but ultimately we're playing this card if you're playing this card for its grit ability. Same for Occupier Siege Tank, 5 cost 5/4 grit. Carabast is a really cool card in Han Solo. 2 cost, a friendly unit deals damage to an enemy unit equal to the amount of damage on the friendly unit plus 1. Obviously, you're going to be dealing a lot of damage to your own units, and you're going to be playing a lot of grit units that are going to be taking a lot of damage. And then, hopefully with high health units, you're going to be able to deal tons of damage with Carabast, way more than 2 costs would normally net you, plus 1. So, by base, if you play a unit with Han Solo's ability, then play Carabast, you're going to be able to deal 3 damage to an enemy unit. That is higher than the going rate by itself. But keep in mind the fact that in a lot of cases you're going to have a lot more than 3 damage or 2 damage on a unit at any given moment, especially when playing this type of deck with high health units, whether they have grit or not. Heroic Sacrifice is another interesting card. 1 cost, draw a card, then attack with a unit. For this attack it gets plus 2 power and gains when this unit deals combat damage, defeat it. Again, you're not going to have to hurt this much because a lot of your units you play are going to be, especially early game, if you use Han Solo's ability on them, low on health already. So swinging in to deal that extra damage, getting a card for your troubles, doesn't seem so bad when it says defeat it as a balancing mechanic, because chances are it's going to die regardless. Bombing Run is definitely an interesting card, but something you have to keep in mind. 5 cost, choose an arena, ground, or space. Deal 3 damage to each unit in that arena. The important part here is the fact that a lot of your units are going to want that damage on them. Also, you are going to lose a lot of your opponent's units in this frenzy as well. This is mainly played as a board clear, but being the fact that you have a lot of grit units, this is actually going to allow you to power up some of your own units and maybe even power up your Carabasts. Onto the command aspect. Modded Cohort is a great example of what works with Han Solo. 4 cost to 4. Other than grit, ambush is the second keyword that I really think about when I see Han Solo's ability. Ambush allows you to play a card. When the card is played, you may ready it and attack an enemy unit. So with Han Solo's ability, you play down an ambush card for less cost and immediately swing into an opponent's unit before they have a chance to kill it, because it's again going to have less health than it normally would have. In this case, it also has raid 2. So with Han Solo's ability, you can drop this turn 2 for 3 cost. Although it's going to take 2 damage, it's immediately going to be able to attack an enemy unit for 4 damage, without really your opponent being able to say much about it. General Recon is another cool option here. 6 cost 5/7 when played, and also when it attacks, choose a friendly unit. If it has Sentinel, give it an experience token, otherwise it gains Sentinel for the phase. Sentinels are a really big keyword when it comes with grit, because a lot of the times you're going to want your opponents to be attacking your units with grit, and sometimes they may try to ignore them completely until they have an answer for them, or they may try to swing at them in one big swing when they get the chance. The important part here is the fact that if you give a grit unit Sentinel, they can't just ignore it, and if they don't have the ability to just defeat it outright or return to your hand or something like that, they're going to have to attack into it with whatever units they have, if they want to attack at all, which is usually going to power up your big beefy allies and units. Reputable Hunter is an interesting card here. 3 cost 3/4 Bounty Hunter. If an enemy unit has bounty, this card costs 1 less to play. Obviously, if you're not playing a bounty deck, this deck is useless. This card is useless. But if you happen to be going the bounty route, which is completely fine in Han Solo, you can then gain access to this card's ability to cost it for 1 less. And then with Han Solo's ability, it can come in for a 1 cost 3/2, which is actually really great value. Mercenary Company is a 6 cost 5/5 Ambush and Overwhelm, and that's really the reason you play this card. You play down for 5 at 5 damage, swing in for Overwhelm before your opponent has a chance to say much about it. Rogue Squadron Skirmish is a 6 cost 4/6 with Ambush as well, and it says when played, return a unit that costs 2 or less from your discard pile to your hand. Like I said, a lot of the early game units you play are going to end up dying very quickly due to their low health by nature. The ability to later in the game get some of them back is going to be important, depending on what units you may have, depending on what you may need to play later in the game. Because as the game goes on, you're going to have a lot more units, and through Han's ability, you may be able to drop multiple 2 or 3 cost units in one turn. Agent Callus is a 5 cost 4/4 with Ambush, but he also has another ability. When another unique unit is defeated, you may draw a card, and you can only use this ability once each round, or phase, I believe is the same terminology. The important part here is that a lot of the times, if you go to the route of playing a bunch of different cheap costed units, you're going to run out of your hand, and you're going to want to refill it somehow, and this is a good draw engine to do that. But another reason to play this card is that it has Ambush, and it works well with Han Solo's game plan or ability. Similar to Agent Callus, Recruit is a card that's going to let you refill your hand with units to play. If you don't have any units, you maybe have a handful of events or upgrades, depending on what type of deck you're playing. Sifting out those units can be really important. And I think the same goes for Prepare for Takeoff. If you're playing a lot of vehicle units, or even a decent amount of vehicle units, the ability to search the top 8 cards of your deck for 2 vehicle units is going to allow you to refill your hand with cards playable, hopefully this turn. On to the Vigilance aspect symbol. Vigilance is really interesting with Han Solo. I think personally it's his best appearing, other than unless you want to, of course, go double aggression. Rose Tico is a 4 cost 2/6 shielded. On attack, you may defeat a shield token on a friendly unit, and if you do, give 2 experience tokens to that unit. Han Solo's ability and the shielded ability raises some timing questions that I'm sure a lot of people have already answered and know the answers to, but it might just have gone right over my head. The way I would read it, though, is that as the active player, you have the ability to choose whether or not the shielded ability takes preference over the deal 2 damage ability. The shielded ability says when you play this unit, give it a shield token, and of course, that timing, as it would seem to most people, that timing slots in between the 2 effects on Han Solo. Though a lot of games don't allow such things to happen, they usually want you to resolve one effect completely, then resolve the other one. So I would completely understand it if shielded works the way that you deal the 2 damage, then you add the shield token to it. And with the case of Rose Tico, that's probably the more preferable option. As I've said in some past videos, a shield token is worth a lot more than 2 damage. Sometimes it's worth less, sometimes it's worth equal, but usually you're going to get a lot more value from a shield token than you are from 2 extra hit points. But for some other cards like the Village Protectors, that timing is really important. Because if you deal 2 damage before you put the shield token on it, this card dies before it gets a chance to even get the shield token. But if the shield token comes into play before it takes the damage, then it will survive, being a 2 cost 2/2 Sentinel. On to some other great Vigilance cards with Han Solo. You have the Gentle Giant, 6 cost 2/8 Wookiee. That's going to be important because, like I said, Vigilance is one of Han Solo's best aspects, and the reason for that is because of the Vigilance Wookiees. In set 2, there's a lot of different cards that reference Wookiees, and other than Chewbacca from set 1, Han Solo seems to be the best option to take advantage of all these different Wookiee cards. In this instance, it has grit, and also on attack, you may heal damage from another unit equal to the damage on this unit. So you're going to heal up some of your other units that don't have grit that you might have dealt damage to through Han's ability, and you're also going to hopefully heal a lot because you're going to be taking a lot of damage on the Gentle Giant. The Mandalorian's another 6 cost 5/6. Sentinel, when played, you may heal all damage from a unit that costs 2 or less and give 2 shield tokens to it. Like I said, a lot of your early game units are going to have low health, and so if one is still alive by the time you, or whether you played one in time, around the time you play the Mandalorian, healing that damage and also giving it 2 shield tokens is going to ensure that that card that you may have played for a little cheaper and put 2 damage tokens on it is going to survive for a little bit longer. Chewbacca obviously had to be in this video, and he actually works really well with Han Solo's entire game plan. He's an 8 cost 4/10 grit. When you play him, you may defeat a unit with 5 or less remaining HP. With Han Solo's ability, you'll be able to play this guy down for 7, which is the same cost as Dooku, and you're going to be able to use his ability similar to Dooku's in a similar way. What's more, 10 health is absolutely massive even for an 8 costed unit, and with grit it only increases the value this card has with Han Solo. Additionally, he also has the ability to smuggle him in for 9 and aggression heroism. Han Solo is obviously an aggression leader, which means that you don't have to worry about the aspects penalty changing here up on you. The only downside of using this smuggle ability is the simple fact that you cannot use it in tandem with Han Solo's ability, which means that if you choose to smuggle him in, you're going to have to pay the full 9. But if you draw him early game and you know you're not going to get around to him until turn 7 at the earliest, it's completely fine putting him in your resource row knowing that you'll get to him at turn 9. The Tree Tinder is a 3 cost 2/4 Wookiee with grit, and that's simply why he's here. Baze Malbus is similar, 4 cost 2/5 with grit, but if you have initiative, he also gains a Sentinel keyword, which does matter, but only if you have initiative. Then finally, Rugged Survivors is a 5 cost 3/5 with grit. On attack, also if you control the leader unit, you can draw a card. The Redemption is a big ship, 8 cost 6/9, but of course you'll be able to play it down for 7. Sentinel. It also says when played, heal up to 8 total damage from any unit, a number of units or bases, and deal that much damage to this unit. The important thing here is that you can heal some of your other units that, again, maybe you want to survive for a little bit longer, or, although they may have grit, you may still want to keep them around for longer than their lifespan initially indicates. So you'll be able to heal up some damage there and put it onto the Redemption. But remember, the Redemption now has 2 -2 health if you use Han Solo's ability on it, which means it's only be able to take up to 6 damage tokens from its own ability before it dies. On to some events, or rather, this is one of the main events I want to talk about. We have Midnight Repair. It's a 2 cost double vigilance event, so you'll be paying 4 for it, but it says heal up to 8 total damage from any number of units. You're going to have a lot of different units on the board with 2 or less damage, or more usually, and so being able to heal up from maybe some of your cooler options like the Redemption maybe, or from some of your lamer options that you still want to keep around for a little bit longer is going to be important. And the fact that you can heal up from multiple different units, not just one unit in particular, is going to allow you a lot of flexibility with this card. Public Enemy is a bounty card that if you want to go this route you can, but it's a 0 cost +0/+0. The attachment negates bounty, give a shield token to a unit. Again, you're going to be dealing a lot of damage to your own units. You want to protect them if you want to protect them, this is an interesting way to do it. On to Cunning. Obviously, the original Han Solo card from set 1 was a Cunning card, and so it makes sense that you'd have a lot of different cool options to use with this Han Solo in the Cunning aspect symbol. Coruscant Descendant is a Descendant, I believe that's how you say that, is a 3 cost 3/4 Underworld Twilight. On attack, you may ready a resource. Ultimately, this card's really here because being able to drop this in on turn 1 for 3/2, and then when you swing in, you can ready a resource is not at all a bad trade. The only problem with this card really is the timing. 2 health on turn 2, and also you're probably going to want to spend your turn 2 resources before you use this card to ready one of them, so it might die before you actually get a chance to really take use out of it, but it's definitely still a cool card. Kira has to be here due to lore reasons, but she does work pretty well with Han as well. 4 cost 3/5 Underworld. When played, look at an opponent's hand, then name a card. While the unit is in play, each card with that name costs 3 more for your opponent to play. The important part here, simply, you are kind of already winning the economy race, and so the ability to tell your opponent that they're going to be even further behind to play their best cards is going to be pretty cool as well. Ultimately, she's a pretty good card in general that allows you to slow down your opponent's biggest card or whatever their game plan is for the phase. You can take a look at your opponent's hand and pretty much tell what they might be planning to do, and throw a big monkey wrench in that plan. Infest Nest is a 6 cost 5/4 Underworld Ambush. While a friendly unit is attacking using ambush, the defender gets -3 power. It's for the ambush keyword trait here. The ambush keyword is the reason why you mainly play this card. Rogue Operative is a 3 cost 2/4 Saboteur Raid 2, but the ability to drop it in for 2 cost 2/4 with Raid 2 is 2/2 with Raid 2 and Saboteur is actually pretty good. 2/2 isn't a horrible stat line for 2 costs, but with Saboteur and Raid 2, it's definitely a good aggressive option. The important thing here is that you may want to grab the initiative and swing with this thing before your opponent swings into it. Chewbacca, this other one from set 1, made its way onto today's list, but I'm not going to pretend it's the best card for this particular Han Solo leader. It's a 5 cost 3/6 with Sentinel. It says when this unit is attacked, ready him. So ultimately, you want this Chewbacca to have as much health as possible so they can take multiple attacks and be ready multiple times per turn. But adding damage counters to it before it even gets a chance to attack once is not necessarily going to help that game plan. Han Solo is a 7 cost 6/6 Underworld unit with ambush, and while he's attacking, he deals combat damage before the defender. Obviously, it's kind of weird to play 2 Han Solos. You have one as a leader, and now you're trying to play one as a unit, but that's not how uniqueness works in this game. Anyway, you play this guy down, he swings in for 6, and he kills anything with 6 or less remaining HP, just dive, and he doesn't take any damage back from that exchange, and he's going to have 4 HP left on him, which isn't nothing, so it's a pretty cool card in this particular deck. The Millennium Falcon, the one from set 2, is a 6 cost 5/5. If you play this unit from your hand against ambush, obviously that's the plan. You play him from your hand using Han Solo's ability for 5, you swing in with ambush 5 damage. But also, you can smuggle him in for 6, which is the same amount as his play cost, except you just don't get ambushed and you can't use Han Solo's ability with it. The Millennium Falcon from set 1, on the other hand, is a 3 cost 2/4. This unit enters play ready. And when you ready cards during the regroup phase, either pay 1 or return this unit to its owner's hand. You can play this card in this Han Solo deck on turn 1 as a 3/2 ready unit. Keep that in mind. Your opponent's going to have no ready units of their own to just instantly kill this thing, and you can actually get an attack off on turn 1. And you're going to be able to swing into your opponent, deal 3 damage to their base usually, or kill whatever turn 1 unit they just played, knowing full well that during the regroup phase next turn, you can either get this back in your hand, pay 1 to keep it on the field, or if it's died from that initial attack, there's that as well. But the point is that it's definitely one of the main reasons to play Cunning, this Han Solo with Cunning, to play this Millennium Falcon. It already was one of the coolest cards from set 1, and now it's just gotten even better. Let the Wookiee win, 2 cost. An opponent chooses one. You ready up to 6 resources, or you ready a friendly unit, and if it's a Wookiee, attack with it, and it gets +2 power for this attack. Ultimately, this is another reason why Han Solo is one of the best Wookiee characters in the game, or the best characters par with Wookiee, other than, of course, Chewbacca. He gets to take advantage of the Wookiee's grit ability to a highest degree, and then also he gets access, and because of that, rather, he gets access to let the Wookiee win, which, unless you're playing a ton of Wookiees, your opponent's almost always going to choose to let you ready friendly unit. Well, maybe not. I mean, Let the Wookiee win's a pretty cool card in general when you read it, because the ready a friendly unit is a period. Then if it's a Wookiee unit, you can attack with it with +2 power. Ultimately, though, this is one of the coolest reasons to play Wookiees, because of the choice it makes your opponent make. A new adventure is a 2 cost double cunning event, so you're going to be paying 4 for it. Return a non-leader unit that costs 6 or less to its owner's hand, then its owner plays it for free. Ultimately, you're going to be playing a lot of units for cheaper than they're already supposed to be anyway. You return them to your hand and you play them for free. I played this 7 cost down. The Redemption, for example, I played this 8 cost down for 7. Well, you couldn't use it with the Redemption. Fine. I played this other card down for 7, right? That is a 6 cost. I played down for 5. I returned to my hand and I play it again for free. Usually maybe the Mercenary Company. Well, no. But for example, there are a lot of good options with here. I'm just blanking out and thinking of one. But the point is that you can use this in a lot of different ways in Han Solo, because ultimately you're going to be playing a lot of these units for cheaper than what they're supposed to be. You're going to be able to pick them up, remove all the damage counters you gave them, and they might have gone from attacking, and then you'll be able to play this thing that thing right back down for free. Oh, a good example is the Chewbacca from set 1. McClunky, 1 cost, return a friendly non-leader underworld unit to its owner's hand. If you do, deal 3 damage to a unit. Ultimately, you're going to be picking up units that have cool on-play abilities, so you can use them again, maybe with Han Solo's ability or without it, and you're going to be getting some damage out of that transaction as well. Shoot first, 1 cost, attack with unit. It gets +1 power for this attack and deals combat damage before the defender. For the same reason why Han Solo is pretty cool, this card's pretty cool here as well, because a lot of the time you can have a lot of low HP units, not because they're base low HP, but because you've dealt 2 damage to them. So then this ability to say, I'm going to swing in for 1 more and kill you, hopefully, before you get a chance to kill me, is pretty cool. On to the end of this video, the heroism aspect. We have some really cool cards in Han Solo and heroism. Starting off with these Wookiees. Wookiee Warriors of 4 cost to 5 Wookiee Grit. So that's good enough reason to play them right there. But then also when you play them, if you control another Wookiee unit, you get to draw a card. Tarful is a 7 cost, 3/9, restore 2. When a friendly Wookiee unit is dealt combat damage and isn't defeated, that unit deals that much damage to an enemy ground unit. So a lot of the time your Wookiees are going to be taking hits, and if they don't die, which they might, but if they don't, they'll be able to send that damage right back. R2-D2, in my opinion, is one of the greatest cards to use with Han Solo's ability and Han Solo in general, because of the reason that he's a 1 cost, 1/4. That alone means that you can use Han Solo's ability to play him for a 0 cost, 1/2. And then he says when played and on attack, so the ability activates when you play him. You can play him for a 0 cost, 1/2 that has an when played ability. Look at the top card of your deck, and you may put it on the bottom of the deck. The ability is kind of a little bit not amazing all the time. But the important part, well, it is a pretty good ability, to be honest. Let me preface by saying that. But it's not setting the world on fire, sure. But the fact that you can play this down for 0 cost, 1/2 and get that ability, and even if your opponent kills it immediately after that, you got that amount of value out of it. That right there is guaranteed to you. Then you can swing into this and keep using that ability and swing in for 1 damage on your opponent's base again and again and again until they decide they want to kill this little droid. It's pretty cool. R2-D2 is already a cool unit. This, in Han Solo, he's especially cool. Not as cool, but decently cool is C-3PO. He's a 2 cost, 1/4. When played and on attack, choose a number. Then look at the top card of your deck. If the cost is the chosen number, you may reveal it and draw it. The thing here is that C-3PO is a 2 cost unit, so you can't make it free with Han Solo's ability. But it is perfectly capable to play R2-D2 and C-3PO both on turn 1 due to Han Solo's ability. And turn 2, swing in with them, use R2 first, and then 3PO, and then get a card, draw a card, and scry 1 or whatever, right? So it's a really cool combo. And then we have Lady Proxima. She was going to make its way into today's video because Han Solo's an Underworld card, and you're going to be playing a lot of different Underworld cards for a lot of different reasons. She's a 1 cost, 0/4. When you play another Underworld card, you may deal 1 damage to a base. For the same reason that R2-D2, this card works really well in Han. You can play her for a 0 cost, 0/2, essentially, because you're going to be dealing with 2 damage. She has 2 remaining HP with the same ability. She's not going to last for very long, but any amount of time she lasts is going to be pure value. And that's going to be it for today's video. Much like the original Han Solo, this new Han Solo, he kind of wants to plan out when he really uses his ability. You're not going to spam it on every unit you play, because it's not always going to help you that much. But you're going to find those run units and those 1 timings, so that was 1 perfect turns in which you're going to pay 1 less for a unit and deal 2 damage to it, knowing that it's going to maybe benefit you for one reason or the other. Whether it be R2 playing a unit for free, or there'll be Chewbacca activating and powering up his own grid ability, or the millions of other things that you could possibly do with this leader, because the ability to choose any card, and pay 1 less to play it is so good. It's so good, and it's only going to be good for a very long time. Obviously, like I said at the beginning of the video, 1 cost for 2 HP is not a perfect value trade, but it is a pretty decent value trade, and one that I think a lot of people will be excited to take time and time again. Hope to see you guys in the next Star Wars Unlimited Leader Spotlight, where we talk about more leaders and more cool cards from set 2. Well, that's going to be all for now, but if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you guys go ahead and watch some of our other videos that we've made on this channel. Also, give this video a like if you thoroughly enjoyed it. And of course, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of our future content. And I hope to see you guys back at the roost.